Many years ago, the protagonist Hyouma witnessed a horrific scene where two of his close siblings were killed by a monster. He was too shocked to do anything to fight the monster, and it was about to take him too. But his siblings used their last breath to save him and let him escape. Since then, he has harbored hatred toward monsters. These monsters are souls from another world that have strayed into the human world and possess objects to exist. So they are collectively called possessed objects or Mononogatari. Now, Hyouma has become strong enough to face a Mononogatari. His grandfather is responsible for helping benign Mononogatari return to their world. The police know about this, but always leave these cases to the exorcist clans to handle. His grandfather only needs to talk to the Mononogatari, recite an incantation to make them possess an object, and then take them back for worship. The police remembered that Hyouma was also chasing a Mononogatari, but his grandfather believed his nephew would use dialogue instead of violence. However, when he went to check, he found Hyouma beating up the Mononogatari and subduing it. His grandfather had to call another clan to look after Hyouma for a while. Back home, Hyouma explained that he acted preemptively to prevent the Mononogatari from causing danger. His grandfather argued that not all Mononogatari are evil, and that Hyouma should observe their actions first and only use force as a last resort. Most Mononogatari just want to return home, and their job is to listen to their wishes and help them. But Hyouma attacks every Mononogatari he meets immediately and forces them into containment without saying a word. Hyouma believes he isn't wrong, saying that following his grandfather's approach in the past led to his loss. His uncle sees that Hyouma hasn't let go of his grudge against Mononogatari. He thought Hyouma could overcome this, but since he hasn't been receptive, his grandfather will now take drastic measures. He told Hyouma about special cases benign Mononogatari who can control their instincts and are allowed to live freely. One such special Mononogatari family lives with a human master, and starting tomorrow, Hyouma will have to live with them under the pretense of monitoring them. This is his grandfather's solution to change him. If Hyouma refuses, his grandfather will revoke his exorcist title. Hyouma then had to pack his things, still not understanding what he did wrong. He looked at the photo of his siblings, unsure whether to bring it along. Hyouma later arrived in Kyoto. His grandfather had told him about the person he would live with, Botan. He would have to learn to reconsider his view of Mononogatari there. The special Mononogatari were out suppressing other unruly Mononogatari when they remembered someone new was coming today, so they rushed back home. When Hyouma arrived at the house, he met two Mononogatari, Hyouri and Kyusi. He knew they were Mononogatari and was visibly wary. Botan, still a student, wasn't home. The other four returned: Kagami, a pink-haired girl; Suzuri, a young man with golden eyes; Yubu, the older sister; and Nagi, the cool older brother. Hyouri explained that they were 6 Mononogatari serving Botan, but would still welcome him. Hyouma immediately declared that he hated Mononogatari and had no intention of befriending them, so they shouldn't bother welcoming him. He would only stand aside and observe. Nagi knew Hyouma was misdirecting his anger, but when Hyouma accused them of deceiving Botan, Nagi became angry and both sides decided to settle things with fists. Nagi forbade anyone from interfering, and Hyouri didn't bother stopping them, wanting to see how this would play out. Nagi manifested 2 swords, saying he would only strike with the blunt side to hurt Hyouma enough. Hyouma recognized this technique as a sign they had reached a dangerous level, so he needed to use his weapons. As Nagi charged forward, his swords suddenly broke in half. Hyouma had taken out 2 rings left by his siblings that could be used to attack Mononogatari. Both sides continued fighting without yielding, though the observers could tell neither was using their full strength. Suddenly, Yui received word that Botan was coming home and informed Hyouri. She signaled everyone to intervene and stop both of them, but ironically, there was a misunderstanding, and they all targeted Hyouma simultaneously. As a result, he took 4 hits and felt this proved Mononogatari couldn't be trusted. When Botan arrived home and asked what happened, everyone remained silent. Hyouma managed a brief greeting before collapsing. And thus began the life of the Mononogatari, a girl close to them, and a boy who hated them. Botan later brought him inside and apologized for not expecting him so early, but he considered it his own oversight. Though he said he wasn't angry, his frightening eyes made Botan flinch slightly. His grandfather had left him here for a year to learn more about Mononogatari, so he just needed to learn basic etiquette. He didn't believe Botan could manage 6 Mononogatari by herself. Suddenly, he noticed one person was missing regarding Nagi. He was being hung up outside. He didn't accept being punished while Hyouma was attacked by everyone. But since he initiated the conflict, he was the one being punished. Hyouma noticed Botan didn't know much about exorcists like him. His clan borrowed power from the deity governing the boundary between human and yakai realms, so to Mononogatari, exorcists were like police. However, while his grandfather was like regular police, he was like military police, making extremely strict distinctions. He suggested Botan was being deceived by those monsters, which angered her, and she refused to accept her family being called monsters. She gave him 3 days to integrate and accept being a deputy member, or he'd be sent home. But his grandfather had warned that leaving early would cost him his position. Not understanding what integration meant, he asked, but the Mononogatari just left without answering. Nagi escaped his bonds to come inside and provoke him, saying Botan was too merciful giving him 3 days. Besides, he didn't want to cause trouble anymore since fighting would cost Hyouma all 3 days. He wanted Hyouma to follow him so he could teach him. While Botan felt she might have been too harsh, Hyouri thought it was appropriate. Nagi was taking Hyouma monster hunting. The condition for their freedom was letting exorcists borrow their power to suppress other Mononogatari. If Hyouma helped him, he would speak to Botan on his behalf. When Hyouma accused him of avoiding work, Nagi claimed he was trying to befriend him. Hyouma noticed Nagi's indifference about hunting his own kind, and Nagi confirmed he didn't like this work. Yes, it was dirty work, but the 6 of them were willing to do this dirty work just to stay by Botan's side. They later found a Yakuza den being attacked by a Mononogatari. When it turned to attack them both, Nagi and Hyouma worked together and managed to seal it. Nagi noticed Hyouma's allergic reaction and thought it was because he hated Mononogatari that much, but that wasn't it. On the way back, Hyouma told Nagi about the umbrella Mononogatari that took his siblings' lives. He didn't understand why information about it was so heavily classified, so he wanted to do his best to become clan head and track down information about that one. The next morning, Hyouma woke early to train when Botan called him for breakfast, but he wanted to finish training first. During the meal, he only ate the portion given without asking for more, which made her feel he was too rigid. Hyouma had made a list. If he got supporting signatures from the majority during his stay, he could continue staying. Today he would work with Suzuri and Kagami. Due to his rigid nature, Botan worried he wouldn't get along with Suzuri, as Suzuri would constantly try to chat up girls whenever he was out. Hyouma thought Suzuri was deceiving humans, but Suzuri was just trying to make more friends. As for Kagami, she would eat whenever possible, which also angered him because Mononogatari don't need to eat, and the actions of both seemed like they were trying to pretend to be human. However, both explained they just wanted to understand humans better to serve Botan better, so they hoped he would stop glaring at them like that. He understood and accepted Suzuri's flirting as a hobby and eating as energy replenishment. They would take him to meet a Mononogatari and hoped he wouldn't glare at them anymore. Later, all 3 went to meet Yaejin, a Mononogatari who wished to become a special case. She was a possessed medicine grinding mortar. Suzuri only asked her one question to test her why she wanted to become a special case. She replied that she felt a sense of familiarity and wanted to stay in the current world. Her answer was approved, but Kagami still needed to use the Yakai viewing mirror to check if she had any suspicious past. Through the mirror, she was found to be safe and without criminal history, so she could stay. Suzuri then would take Yaejin along and asked Hyouma to call Botan to see if they needed to buy anything. Upon hearing Botan's family name, Yaejin suddenly panicked and attacked Suzuri. Hyouma rushed to save Kagami and subdued Yaejin. As he was about to seal her, he heard her reason for panic. She had heard about Mononogatari from Botan's house attacking their own kind and became frightened. Suzuri returned and explained the situation, which made Yaejin trust him enough to follow. Kagami thanked Hyouma and explained how special cases would be handled. That evening, he let Kagami sit on his back while training. Botan had gotten used to his rigid personality, and now 3 out of 6 signatures had been collected on the acceptance list for Hyouma to stay. The next morning, Hyouma woke up realizing it was the 3rd day and he only had half the required signatures. Meanwhile, 4 Monogatari in the area had long held grudges against the Monogatari at Botan's house, disliking how they followed humans to hunt their own kind. While washing his face, Hyouma met Botan, who wanted to extend his deadline, but he wanted to take responsibility for the situation he put himself in. The 3 who signed told him only Yuu remained, as Hyouri and Kyusei hadn't objected from the start. Yuu had particularly bad impressions of him and was quite cold, making her the most difficult obstacle to overcome. However, thinking about it, Yuu and Hyouma's personalities were quite compatible, so the rest might depend on fate. When Hyouma went to meet Yuu, she had already finished handling the sealing matters herself. She directly stated her dislike for his actions and words from the first day, and for making Botan cry. She gave him 2 choices: give up or make her genuinely convinced right there to get her signature. She then released spiritual energy around them, which attracted the 4 hostile Monogatari. Nagi noticed and knew Hyouma would be in trouble if Yuu was serious. Hyouma kept running away without fighting back, while Yuu continuously threw giant needles at him. When his scarf was hit, it immediately rolled up. She wanted him to attack rather than run. She then summoned several hairpins and kicked them toward Hyouma, but he still showed no resistance. When she started criticizing his prejudices, he admitted that he was brought here to change those prejudices. After 2 days here, he felt they were indeed different from other Monogatari, and until he could clearly understand that difference, it was too early to raise his hand against them. Yuu changed her view of him, while Hyouri at home had informed Hyouma's grandfather that he would likely stay regardless of the outcome. However, his grandfather warned them that the darkness in Hyouma's heart was deeper than they thought. He apologized for any trouble, but hoped they would look after his nephew. Yuu returned his scarf, and Hyouma confidently stated he still had half a day to change her mind and get her signature. He then noticed Yuu's feelings for Botan were very human-like, commenting that she seemed to really like Botan. This comment made her blush and throw a needle into the sky. The enemy Monogatari appeared, and so did Nagi. Seeing Hyouma as an obstruction, they kicked him away. Both sides had equal numbers, and Nagi thought Yuu must have caused trouble to attract them. Suzuri knew a fight was inevitable, while Hyouma was trapped elsewhere. Nagi wanted to pause so Yuu could bring Hyouma out, but feeling underestimated, the opposing group decided to target Hyouma first. After that, the group had to split up to fight. Nagi held back the rooster-haired guy so Yuu could run to free Hyouma. Suzuri managed to call Hyouri, and she brought Mr. Kyusei along. She hoped that after this incident, she would be able to see Hyouma's true nature. When one guy threw a hook at Yuu, Suzuri trapped him using ink. When another used steel balls to drill towards him, Kagami used mirrors to deceive him. Suddenly, Kagami sensed someone moving in the building and warned Yuu. The big guy with scissors for hands appeared, but she managed to dodge. Meanwhile, Nagi was still in a one-on-one fight with the rooster-haired guy. Nagi clarified that the way he follows humans is similar to how their subordinates follow their orders, and the reason he sees them as enemies to be eliminated is because they torture humans for entertainment. However, Hyouma overheard what they said. He freed himself from Yuu's spell. When the scissors-handed guy rushed to attack him, he jumped down and split him in half. When the other 2 rushed at him, he made quick work of them and rushed to kick the rooster-haired guy flying. The guy saw that Hyouma was like him, enjoying the killing. Hyouma didn't deny this, but was determined to eliminate all Monogatari who threaten humans. Hyouri now understood somewhat about Hyoma's nature. Previously, in his eyes, Monogatari were just harmful objects to humans, but it seems he had changed somewhat. She believed his distorted soul could still be healed. She believed he would save Botan, who was once saved by Monogatari. The fate between him and Botan would be connected by their own hands. Years ago, Botan was between life and death, so her grandfather entrusted these 6 people to protect her so she could enjoy life as a human. We learn that when Hyoma's grandfather called Hyouri, she had set a condition for accepting the task of watching over Hyouma. Now Hyouma has Yuu's signature. He's just starting his life here. He realizes there's some other connection here that he'll have to observe carefully to see if there are Monogatari he can trust. Botan ran back after hearing he had collected enough signatures. He stiffly turned to confirm what she said and asked permission to greet her again. She had to laugh because he was indeed too rigid. Meanwhile, the others knew Yuu's sign to avoid affecting their work, and they also mentioned that time was approaching. Botan informed Hyouma about the house members taking turns cooking. Hyouma can cook decently, so he'll be comfortable with this. Suddenly, they both met Yuu and Hyouri. Hyouri decided to reveal the secret agreement between her and Hyoma's grandfather. They went to the main room together. The secret covenant she had agreed to was that he would come here as their supervisor, and in return, they set a condition to test and evaluate him during his year here to see if he was worthy of the position they had been looking for. Botan knew but was muffled by Yuu before she could speak. The position they were looking for was the master of this house, or in other words, Botan's fiancé. Hyouma froze in confusion while Botan could only blush. Botan thought they were joking, but they were all serious. They revealed this was their mission, as all 6 of them were items Botan would take with her when she married. The signatures he earned meant he had been approved. His grandfather had also approved, so now they just needed his opinion. Obviously, only Yuu still hadn't accepted him, and she warned she would skewer him if he hurt Botan. However, he still couldn't accept this situation. Agreeing immediately wouldn't be right, but refusing would embarrass his grandfather, so he asked for more time to think. He then asked permission to go jogging. Everyone thought he seemed to handle it calmly. Botan worried she would be in an awkward position because of this for a year, and she also didn't think Hyouma would accept this family. Hyouri thought Botan was worrying too much, and it was because of this habit that they worried she would remain single. At least they saw that Hyouma could stay calm instead of panicking. Though when he left the house, he was also blushing and still confused about what was happening. The next day, Botan didn't know how to talk to Hyouma, and Hyouri enjoyed watching Botan being flustered like this. Hyouma called his grandfather, thinking that he put him in this relationship to strengthen his mental fortitude. But no, his grandfather was just worried because Hyouma was 21 and hadn't had any romantic relationships, so he took the opportunity to matchmake with Hyouri. He hung up and went to discuss things with Hyouri, but she and Mr. Kyusei were out on business. Yuu and Nagi went to deal with the remaining accomplices from before without calling him along. Botan was about to go out when she met Hyouma. She wanted him not to mind what Hyouri had arranged, and he bluntly said he didn't mind at all, which made her leave quite sad. Suzuri thought he was stupid for coldly saying those words and hurting Botan. Even Kagami cried and punched him for saying those things. He didn't quite understand what the two meant. Although Botan heard Hyouma's clear words, deep down she still felt somewhat disappointed. Suddenly, she encountered a Monogatari who was the boss of the group that Yuu and Nagi were dealing with. They had dealt with the others, and one revealed that their boss must have caught Botan, forcing both to rush back to save her. When Botan tried to run, the other one blocked her. He was an ashtray and could control ash to stop her, but Hyouma rushed in to confront him. He pushed him back, and at that moment, the other two arrived. Nagi summoned his sword to cut him in half, allowing Yuu to wrap him up. Yuu rushed to check on Botan while Hyouma learned that the Monogatari group was trying to self-destruct, which was why they needed someone to protect Botan in their place. Nevertheless, they thanked Hyouma for saving Botan. He then pulled Yu away to deal with the remaining ones she had trapped at the old place. Hyouma took this opportunity to apologize to Botan for the misunderstanding. He meant earlier that she shouldn't worry about what Hyouri's group said to avoid trouble. The two at home didn't know if Hyouma had finished apologizing because he was the type who didn't know how to choose his words. It wasn't that he was trying to be cold or indifferent. He just didn't know how to explain things to her properly. She laughed because both families were quite meddlesome, making things difficult for them. The next morning, Nagi made a fuss about Hyouma wanting to put talismans around the house to prevent ordinary Mononogatari from entering. Nagi told him that Mr. Kyusei had already set up a barrier around the house, so talismans weren't necessary, but since he had already put them up, Nagi made him take them all down. Suzuri also remembered that Hyouri and Mr. Kyusei had gone to meet that person and hoped they were okay. Meanwhile, Hyouri and Mr. Kyusei met Hyouma's grandfather. The three hadn't met in a long time, and this time's purpose was to prevent an entity named Kai. This entity was extremely dangerous, and his greeting was an attack. All three were trapped in multiple walls, but flying blades were dispelled by Hyouma's grandfather. He wanted Kai to stop greeting guests this way. Kai was one of the three great Mononogatari, so powerful he had to be confined here. In exchange, he could designate anyone to come entertain him. The Exorcism Bureau accepted him as a special case, but feared his great power, so they had the Monogatari Itsuki seal him here. These two could be called the strongest Monogatari duo. Kai was interested in Hyouma staying at Botan's house and wanted all three to sit and tell him about it. He had wine and food ready. When the grandfather wanted to make excuses to leave, Kai wouldn't let him and forced them to stay for several days to entertain him. Meanwhile, Hyouma was collecting the talismans because Nagi thought they would affect Botan, but something still bothered him. Kai revealed that sending Hyouma to Botan's house had two purposes. First, to fix his nature, and second, to balance Botan. Because Botan was a human between the boundary of humans and Mononogatari, her constant proximity to Mononogatari forced them to bring Hyouma to balance her out. Hyouma discovered his talisman had burned, proving it had worked in preventing attacking Mononogatari. Kai warned Hyouri's group about the appearance of those who moved one step ahead and told them to be careful. The two who destroyed Hyouma's talismans had appeared and were coming for him. At this time, 4 Mononogatari were trying to tear off Hyouma's talismans, but the closer they got, the more paralyzed they became by it. Hyouma was forced to lie that he was a government official rather than the person they were looking for. When he pretended to turn away, they realized that the government wouldn't know about the barrier, but he had turned back and sealed one of them and planned to capture the other alive to force information about their accomplices' locations. However, he made a mistake. This one had avoided his attack, and the one he thought he had sealed was still outside. At this moment, Yu called Hyouma to ask how many talismans were left, but seeing that he didn't answer and the talisman had burned, she knew something had happened. Hyouma thought these two were targeting Botan's Mononogatari, so he was determined not to say anything. However, they wanted information about him and his clan rather than the others, as they had been lurking around Botan's house for a long time and didn't know why he entered that house. They wondered if his clan was targeting the power that Botan possessed. If he didn't talk, they would start a war over Botan. He began to draw his weapons to fight back, not caring what they were saying but only knowing they were targeting Botan, and Mononogatari who target civilians needed to be eliminated. The man realized Hyouma knew nothing about Botan, and Yu appeared to explain to them why Hyouma was there. The man's name was Aogi, and since he had gotten his answer, Yu wanted him to leave. When Hyouma objected, Yu stopped him, saying if he got involved, this would become a bigger issue. They had a mission to investigate information their employer wanted. Aogi wouldn't apologize for going too far as it was part of his job. While Hyouma was busy planning how to take down these two if they met again, Yu sent him home saying she would handle the remaining talisman. On his way home, he didn't understand what Aogi meant about Botan's power. There were still mysteries about her that he didn't know. The next day, Hyouri suddenly dressed up nicely to go on a date with Hyouma. The reason was that 30 minutes earlier, Hyouri had returned from Kai's place and heard about Hyouma being interrogated by Aoji. At this time, he suddenly asked to date to learn about Botan, but was rejected because she was approaching a report deadline and hadn't finished yet. She ran off first, and Hyouma later had to discuss his questions with Hyouri and Kagami. Hyouri knew they would have to tell him eventually, so she told him to wait in front of the convenience store. The reason she dressed up was to pretend to be a couple with him and follow Botan. They needed to follow her so he could see everything around Botan daily. At home there was a barrier, but when outside, Botan always had to feel the gazes from other Monogatari. They were observing her from all directions, and she had to accept it. When Botan arrived at school and submitted her report on time, her friends asked if she had recently gotten to know any guys. Botan remembered Hyouma and didn't know what he had said earlier. Hyouma was now being informed by Hyouri about Monogatari. Basically, they were spirits that possessed objects and gained power. So what would happen if a Monogatari had a human body? Would the power be as great as a god's? Botan was a perfect body for Monogatari to possess, which is why they made a law not to touch her. Now he somewhat understood Aoji's words then, and he wanted to know if Hyouri's group could confidently say they had no ill intentions while being with Botan. She wanted him to stop asking questions that sounded like jokes, as Botan had been entrusted to them long ago. During the first 3 years when the law was established, Botan had to live indoors because whenever she went out, children sensitive to her powers would be frightened, and adults would shudder at her presence. During that time, family bonds were formed among the 6 of them. They spent a lot of time helping Botan overcome the fear of those around her, and then more time helping her powers not affect others. Because of that, they were acknowledged by his grandfather, so he probably wouldn't doubt his grandfather's decision. He was confident he could protect Botan, causing Kagami to emerge from hiding. Both of them felt he seemed ready to be Botan's fiancé since his words essentially meant staying by Botan's side for life. Botan happened to arrive then and didn't understand why all 3 were there. Hyouri lied that this was a friendship bonding party. When Hyouma asked Kagami about Botan's parents, no one knew about them. Botan had been entrusted to them by the grandfather since childhood, and after his death, no one else claimed to be Botan's family. The group then left, and Botan knew Hyouri had told Hyouma about her past. She worried Hyouma would find her strange, and she was also concerned about pushing him away that morning, fearing it might have created negative feelings. However, contrary to her thoughts, he admired her. She was happy because Hyouma was the first person to admire her after hearing about that past. He also saw how the Monogatari close to Botan were very similar to his own siblings, so he had almost no doubts about them anymore. The streets were beginning to fill with snow. While Botan still had to go to school, Hyouma continued his morning runs. Seeing him wearing clothes that were too thin, Botan gave him a thermal bag to prevent catching a cold. Just as they left the house, Aoji arrived and was received by Suzuri. Kagami disliked Aoji because he had beaten Hyouma badly, leaving him bruised. Aoji temporarily believed that Hyouma came here just to train and improve his character, but his client remained suspicious about their noteworthy activities. Suzuri cleverly manipulated him into revealing that 3 forces were currently targeting this house, and it seemed the Kyoto protection team would be the first to act. After Aoji left, Nagi praised Suzuri for handling the situation and extracting information from Aoji. However, there was one thing Aoji didn't tell them. A few nights ago, he had encountered a female Monogatari carrying an umbrella. She wanted information from Aoji, but he only provided information when given information in exchange. He wanted to see how this family would overcome the coming storm. The next day, Hyouma had to meet the Kyoto protection team to request an operating permit. His grandfather and others warned him to be cautious of the team boss because he was a cunning fox. Upon meeting them, Hyouma saw a blindfolded Monogatari whom the boss explained was a special case he had requested to assist with work. Two young exorcists there, upon hearing Hyouma was from a major clan, assumed he was a useless young master who couldn't accomplish anything. He was then shown how this protection team operated, and the team boss informed him he could have exorcism authority here. If he needed, he could join the boss's team as they were short-staffed. The boss also had something to ask of him regarding Botan's family. While Botan was at school wondering whether to make hot pot that night, Hyouma was being asked for help by the boss, who viewed Botan as a threat. If she awakened and became a Mononogatari, she would become the master of all Mononogatari in the world, and the consequences would be unimaginable. The boss couldn't handle Botan because of her grandfather and the guards always protecting her, but since Hyouma had gotten past those defenses and approached Botan, he was the only one who could seal the guards and deal with her. However, Hyouma's final answer was refusal. He didn't see her as a monster and didn't hate that family, so he refused again. The boss used spells to surround him and gave him one last chance, but the answer was still no, so he detonated the spells. When one person rushed forward, they immediately received a kick from Hyouma. He revealed the scars on his body as proof that he wasn't a useless young master who couldn't do anything. His combat experience was as extensive as a master's. The leader saw he wasn't easy to deal with as he could fight with both martial arts and spells, so he summoned many puppets under his control, which served only one purpose, to wear down Hyouma's stamina so the leader could use magic to bind him. However, Hyouma wanted to know who the girl behind was. She was the daughter of the boss, and when her father asked if she wanted to participate, she refused. Without hesitation, he kicked one person flying towards her direction. When another person launched an attack, he grabbed and threw them away. He also drew his weapon and cut down two approaching enemies. The boss recognized that weapon as his family's secret weapon called Tenganam. He had generously revealed his family's technique, showing he was mentally prepared. The boss had heard about his tragedy and noticed that he had nurtured that hatred more than imagined. Meanwhile, Nagi was shopping for hot pot ingredients and told Suzuri that Hyouma had started fighting since age 12. Back then, he had taught himself and risked his life hunting Mononogatari. At 18, he single-handedly defeated a Mononogatari considered as powerful as an entire clan. Hyouma had now dealt with all the Mononogatari the boss controlled, but instead of letting his subordinates act, the boss summoned another controlled Mononogatari. He recognized this Mononogatari as Yaejin, the girl he and Suzuri had negotiated with before. He hadn't expected to meet her in these circumstances. She continuously launched kicks at him, but not wanting to harm her, he only defended instead of counterattacking with his weapon. The boss noticed his compassion for Mononogatari. While he could be merciless against enemies, he hesitated with acquaintances. The boss thought sending Hyouma here had made him weak rather than mature. As the boss planned to trap him as a puppet for easy control, Hyouma accepted Yaejin's attack and struck at her eye, then grabbed all the talismans the boss threw and kicked his subordinate in the mouth before pointing his weapon at the boss. Yaejin returned to normal as Hyouma's strike had targeted the boss's binding spell on her. The boss's daughter remembered meeting Hyouma's siblings before and hearing about him. Seeing him now match those stories, she advised her father to stop, saying if Hyouma fought seriously, they would surely lose. She even offered to help Hyouma as she found him interesting. The boss then woke his subordinate, laughing and claiming this was just a test before issuing Hyouma's permit. He apologized for speaking ill of the Botan family, saying he worried he couldn't deceive Hyouma but found him easier to fool than expected. He decided to leave Yaejin in Hyouma's care. The daughter gave Hyouma her contact information to discuss his siblings someday and introduced herself as Tsubaki. Since Yaejin didn't understand what happened, Hyouma would explain on the way home. Upon returning home, everyone was still concerned about the hot pot. Yaejin worried about being in a house of demons who hunted her kind. He asked her to endure for one day as his family would come for her tomorrow. Inside, Botan worried seeing his disheveled state. Hyouma thought about how Tsubaki's father's eyes didn't seem to be lying. He truly wanted to eliminate Botan. Botan got bandages for him, and he asked if Yejin could stay for a day. Seeing Yejin's torn clothes and beauty, she suspected what he might have done to her, so Hyouma had to explain. Mr. Kyusei had returned home completely drunk, while Nagi took the opportunity to get Yejin's number to befriend her. The next morning, others went shopping while Hiyori stayed to watch Mr. Kyusei. Hyouma asked permission to take Yejin somewhere. Hiyori insisted Botan go along, saying it wasn't appropriate for him to go alone with a beauty. Yejin also wanted her to come because Hyouma's eyes were scary. The three visited where Yejin had lived with her master when she was just a medicine grinder. Though she didn't remember her master's face clearly, she had a strong feeling about this place. She had returned several times, but never went inside. Just being outside was enough for her. Yejin then asked to leave early, not wanting to take more time from the lovebirds, but they had to explain that the engagement was just arranged by Hiyori's group. At the train station, Yejin thanked Hyouma for all his help, but he considered it just part of his job. Yejin told him that she felt Botan was very much like a master, and surely all Monogatari must see the same light in Botan that she saw. She hoped he would protect Botan well. That afternoon, Botan thanked Hyouma for taking her along and helping her learn many new things. She then asked Hyouma about why he used to hate Monogatari so much. He noticed that Hiyori hadn't told her, so he decided to explain. His twin siblings were both killed by a Monogatari they encountered on the road. The image of that being impaling his siblings and laughing arrogantly was something he would never forget. Botan apologized for bringing up bad memories, but said he should have told her earlier. He now understood what the old man meant when he said there were many types of Monogatari. Botan also noted how much he had changed from when they first met. He was very different from her initial impression. His words back then had been truly hurtful, but now she had high hopes for his complete transformation. He sensed several gazes in their direction, including one with killing intent. The other three told Yuu to stop pressuring them, but she couldn't accept that Botan was dating Hyouma. Botan also wanted him to call her by her first name instead of her family name. The group had to hold Yuu back before she could threaten Hyouma. Soon after, the Kyoto protection team discovered traces of Monogatari torturing humans to death. Since the puppets he sent were destroyed, there must be at least 3 culprits. He suspected one of the 3 factions that Aoji had mentioned before was behind this. The next day, Botan warned Hyouma to be careful since he always came back injured. When he tried to call Botan by her name, he sensed killing intent. Botan had to forbid Yuu from causing trouble with Hyouma since she had given permission. They both went out on a mission afterward. Hyouma knew this mission must be difficult if both he and Yuu were called to go together. She informed them they would be facing Townjinbai, a major gang in Kyoto. Those people all possessed torture and execution tools as their vessels. 4 years ago, the protection team had to concentrate their forces to suppress them. But this incident seemed to be caused by 3 remaining members of that gang. The reason they left Nagi and others at home was because they suspected the gang might target Botan. Hyouma felt comfortable because he could beat those guys without having to listen to their thoughts. He then met Tsubaki again, who would help him on this mission. Yuu was about to report that Hyouma was flirting with girls wherever he went. Both Yuu and Tsubaki knew each other from before. She informed that Tsubaki would be the next leader of the protection team, so maintaining good relations with her would be beneficial. When Hyouma noticed no one else was there, Aoji explained that only 3 people would participate. The 2 on his side would provide guidance but not engage in combat. Other members were spreading talismans throughout the city to search, while the 3 of them would form a separate team to investigate the gang's hideout. All 3 were brought there, and Hyouma thought it was impressive that Aoji was investigating this area himself. Actually, Hyouma was the cause of these recent incidents. The protection team had not bothered Saojinbai before because they had stayed quiet, but ever since Hyouma arrived and beat up the Mohawk guy and the Ash Sweeper, they had become discontented and risen up because those 2 were Saojinbai members. The 3 Saojinbai members had now shown themselves. Hyouma still asked them why they hurt people, and they simply said they did it because they enjoyed it, and it was their duty as torture tools. They had planned to ambush the protection team, but couldn't extract information from their captives, so they waited there. Hyouma felt there was no need to hold back against them anymore. Tsubaki also wanted to witness Hyouma's true power there. She wanted to see if he was the person she had been waiting for. When Aoji tried to avoid fighting, Tsubaki stuck a talisman on him and rushed toward the strong woman behind. The fire user in front rushed at Tsubaki, while the fuzzy-haired one lunged down wanting to fight Hyouma. He didn't want to waste words and wanted to deal with this guy quickly along with Yuu. Meanwhile, Aoji tried to use words to avoid fighting. She had actually disliked Aogi for a long time because he was too cunning and self-serving, and he also sucked up to humans. After hearing himself being insulted, Aogi no longer showed any restraint and called his teammates to attack. Hyouma and Yuu coordinated to throw a hairpin at his hand, and she managed to throw another one at his neck. Although he was twisted up, he could still recover as he had evolved to regenerate his body. He pushed Yuu to one side and noticed his blade had become shorter due to Hyouma's scissors cutting through it. These scissors were from the door leading to the Yakai realm, so anything cut by them would be sent back to the Yakai realm and completely disappear from the human world. He then manipulated his blade to surround Hyouma's body, but just as it was about to touch his neck, the blade stopped. Meanwhile, Tsubaki had finished dealing with the fire user because her pursued target was stronger. She noticed that Hyouma was similar to her in pursuing the paper umbrella Yakai. He had cut away the mass of blades. The muscular woman was distracted watching Tsubaki and was restrained by Aoji's teammate while he delivered a finishing move on her. Aoji's teammate lost another layer and only had 3 left. Only the razor blade Yakai remained. He decided to use his final form, transforming his body into a monster. But Yuu had returned. She had wrapped the entire house in a hairpin and signaled Hyouma to back away. He said he understood, but when she charged forward, he followed suit. She was forced to change her fighting strategy and threw the entire building at him. He was pushed toward Hyouma, who cut him in half, while Hyouma had jumped and avoided all the objects in the building to land safely. Afterward, Yuu argued with Hyouma because he didn't understand her intentions. She told him to back off, but he charged in to fight. Botan had clearly told him to be careful not to get hurt, but he was acting more reckless than thoughtful. The razor blade Yakai wasn't dead yet and was crawling through the forest, but unfortunately for him, the protection squad boss found him. The boss saw his potential and could have used him for something, but because he dared to rebel and act on his own, to the boss he was nothing but trash now. He was eliminated, and Tsubaki later heard from her father that the razor blade Yakai had been completely dealt with. Tsubaki revealed her reason for pursuing the paper umbrella Yakai. Hyouma's siblings held a very high place in her heart. She had always been bored with weak beings, and his siblings were 2 people she acknowledged, so she considered them her joy. Because the paper umbrella Yakai had stolen her joy, she wanted to deal with him. She wanted Hyouma to come with her to hunt down that Yakai. Yuu knew this sweet invitation would easily tempt Hyouma, but if he stepped over to that side, he would definitely be drained of energy by Tsubaki. Because she was like her father, they would exploit everything under their control and drain them completely. Hyouma thanked her for the invitation but declined. When leaving, Yuu asked him about not having any intention to go with Tsubaki, even though he would still chase the paper umbrella Yakai. He explained that he had promised his siblings he would defeat that enemy with his own strength. Additionally, he stayed because of Botan. Yuu thought he was beginning to have feelings for Botan, though he hadn't realized this himself. Upon returning home, Hyouma was scolded for getting too many injuries. A few days later, Hiyori announced that the family would celebrate a festival. Others went shopping while Botan and Hyouma were assigned to find a large pot in the house. Hiyori wanted Botan to take this opportunity to make progress with Hyouma, even providing a list of suggestions. She worried that Hyouma was too straightforward and would find her actions strange, but she thought Hyouma probably wouldn't pay attention to romantic matters anyway. Meanwhile, Hiyori bought meat before the housewives by extending her arm. Yu really wanted to return early to prevent the two from being alone too long. Kagami used the yakai viewing mirror to pick the smallest fish. Suzuri used her negotiation skills to buy at cheaper prices. And for Nagi to buy alcohol, he had to have a drinking contest with the shopkeeper. Meanwhile, Botan has been experiencing awkward moments with Hyouma, from their hands touching while carrying things to him standing right behind her while getting items. She didn't want to be the only one feeling embarrassed while Hyouma remained indifferent, but she understood that was just how he was and let it go. Later, she tried to find another place and dropped a hint note, which Hyouma read. Botan had to explain that this was Hiyori's scheme. While she thought he wouldn't care, he suddenly turned his face away, making her suspicious. Noticing his strange way of talking, she realized he was embarrassed and tried to see his face, but he kept hiding it, which led to both of them falling on top of each other. They both blushed while looking at each other, but there was a murderous aura coming from the door. He ended up getting wrapped in hairpins. The neighborhood elder had returned home after playing chess with Mr. Cusey all day. When he heard they were looking for a large pot, he mentioned that he was still borrowing it and hadn't returned it yet. Hiyori only remembered this afterward, much to Hyouma's group's displeasure. Now that they had the pot, the family organized a hot pot dinner. Seeing everyone eating together made Hyouma feel like they were a real family. Botan later got drunk and clung to Hyouma, causing even Nagi to join Yu in the anti-couple club. Botan was then taken to sober up, and she apologized for the day's events, but Hyouma blamed it all on Hiyori. He mentioned that every family seems to have this kind of sister figure, as his own sister used to joke about opposite gender friends too. Hyouma found this house lively and interesting, noting that he probably wouldn't have noticed these things before. They were both then pulled back to continue eating. When Botan woke up midway through, she saw the party was over and everyone was asleep. A hair clip fell out, reminding her of her painful past, but seeing Hyouma sleeping peacefully, she put it away. The next day, Botan went with Hyouma as he needed to visit the protection team to order equipment. This equipment could protect him from enemy attacks. Just as Tsubaki had remained unscratched despite being hit by fire attacks, he had read about the models and learned there would be a compatibility test before ordering. At the location, they met Tsubaki, who teased them about looking like a couple before leading them upstairs to fit the outfit. They were taken to Monogatari's shop, where this sewing Monogatari would create outfits with characteristics like another Monogatari. Tsubaki showed them how it worked, a piece of fabric transforming into an outfit. One just needed to build a relationship between both parties to control it. Though Hyouma was hesitant to let a Monogatari attach to him, he slapped his cheeks to calm down. Deciding that if this would reduce his injuries and make Botan worry less, he would do it. He then decided to have a fist fight with the fabric, which formed into a fist and punched him back. After exchanging blows, both sides understood each other's strength, and Hyouma negotiated with the fabric to become his outfit. When leaving, Hyouma had a new outfit that wasn't much different from his old one. A few days later, Hyouma agreed to help Botan with some club activities. He helped her fix the club sign, and Botan had to call him her cousin. Her friends wondered about her apparently having many siblings, causing her to pull Hyouma away. Later, when her friends came looking for her again, she told Hyouma to leave first. He found school life quite energetic. Meanwhile, Suzuri and Nagi were also at school when Nagi suddenly discovered the girl Itsuki there. She cast some spell on Hyouma, trapping him in a barrier where he met Kai. Kai came to meet Hyouma and test his abilities. Though Hyouma didn't understand everything, he knew he had to deal with it if a Monogatari was targeting humans. Hyouma continuously dodged, noticing his body felt lighter thanks to the new outfit. The objects Kai repeatedly used to attack him proved that Kai was both armor and a samurai's weapon. Hyouma kept cutting through Kai's attacks and charged forward, but was headbutted by a helmet Kai summoned. He realized Kai might be one of Kyoto's 3 great Monogatari. Nagi went to Itsuki's place and asked why she was there and where Kai was. Itsuki explained that Kai was playing with Hyouma inside, and since he found Hyouma weak, he might just finish him off right there. Itsuki wouldn't allow anyone to interfere with Kai, so she would be the opponent of both of them if they intended to disrupt. Kai didn't believe someone as weak as Hyouma could be the one who said they would destroy the paper Monogatari. When Hyouma asked if he knew who that person was, Kai deliberately avoided answering directly and only said that Hyouma's desire for revenge was too superficial. Hyouma used talismans to bind him and then rushed out from the smoke to punch him, but was quickly grabbed by the head and slammed to the floor. Nagi and Suzuri also ran in there. While Nagi could still fight against Kai, when he saw Itsuki being caught, he stopped fighting. Itsuki announced time was up, so Kai was sealed and bound again. Hyouma wanted Nagi to explain everything clearly, but first needed to be let down. Meanwhile, Botan overheard club members discussing Hyouma. They all found him handsome and wanted to keep him there. Hearing this, Botan sent everyone home so she could lock up. Nagi explained to Hyouma that Kai was just greeting him in his own way. His personality tends to be excessive, so he combined entertainment with greetings. Nagi was surprised that Itsuki was weak enough to fall from just a flick. Regarding the paper Monogatari matter, Kai directly stated that Hyouma wasn't skilled enough yet to receive answers from him, saying Hyouma wasn't even as strong as when his siblings were killed. Part of the reason was that Hyouma refused to use his own weapons and instead used the two left behind by his siblings. Botan passed by Hyouma's location and hid in a corner to eavesdrop. Kai mentioned that keeping Hyouma near Botan was too cruel, because the paper Monogatari killed Hyouma's siblings because of Botan. At that time, Botan had lost faith in humans, which caused Monogatari to become dissatisfied with humans as well. Nagi and Suzuri became angry and wanted to fight Kai, but Itsuki sealed him and dragged him away, apologizing for his words. After Kai was taken back to his confinement, Hyouma requested a few days off, which Suzuri approved. Kai's words were said to be just rumors, but they couldn't avoid the possibility of them being true. Even without knowing the exact truth, Hyouma would still care because it involved his siblings. Only high-ranking members knew the truth, while Monogatari representatives of the Exorcism Bureau like them couldn't know anything. In the following days, Hyouma hadn't returned, and Botan was depressed. She didn't know what expression Hyouma had at that time and worried that if she really was connected to Hyouma's loss, she could never face him again. Therefore, she went to find Tsubaki to meet her father. Botan wanted to ask him if she was the reason for the death of Hyouma's siblings. He had to explain to her, and when leaving, he mentioned that he heard about Hyouma's disappearance and revealed that Hyouma had been there for the past few days. Hyouma then entered a few days ago. He had come there saying he was still inexperienced and wanted to train. The father was now sending Hyouma home because having him stuck there was troublesome. When leaving, Hyouma heard that Botan knew about the situation and came to confirm it, which he found quite brave. He confessed that he never doubted Botan and considered Kai's words nonsense. He only knew that he wasn't complete yet and next time would have to force Kai to reveal the information. Botan admired how he could stay steady on his path without getting lost. She revealed why she didn't trust humans before she had been kidnapped when she was 7. Relatives had come to adopt her, a distant relative and her father's sister. She chose to trust them, and her aunt was the one who took her away, as the man was the one to be wary of. Botan was taken home by her aunt, who decided to raise her as a normal person away from Monogatari. While the Hyouri group was searching for her, she had a happy life with her aunt, almost seeing her as a second mother. However, those days suddenly ended when her aunt and Botan met with an accident caused by that person. Botan was so shocked witnessing her aunt's death that she lost her memories from that moment. When she regained consciousness, everything had ended, and she was with everyone else. From then on, she began losing faith in people, fearing betrayal and witnessing loved ones die. Hyouma wanted Botan to trust him. He promised he would never betray her and would prove it by protecting her. Hyouma showed a smile that surprised Botan because it was the first time she had seen him smile so brightly. Even Yu thought he didn't have those facial muscles. Feeling slightly offended, he left. Hiyori, who had heard everything from behind, saw that things seemed to be progressing. The relationship between Botan and Hyouma had taken another step forward. What challenges await these two ahead? You can find out more in Part 2 of Mononogatari. Goodbye.